Happy Devils Wednesday. This is a special edition of the State of the Fan Address presented by pucksandpitchforks.com. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Nick Villano, the editor-in-chief of that fine website, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker in North Jersey, South Jersey. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, some say X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network as everyone's filing in for the 2023-24 Devils season preview. Got a great lineup tonight from MSG Networks. Play-by-play announcer Bill Spaulding, pucksandpitchforks.com's credentialed writer Dan Rice, NJD on the rush, Alex Chauvancy, Catherine Bogart of the New Jersey Devils, and Ben Birnell of the Sentinel Sports. Yeah, we got it all tonight. Nick, how are you tonight?
I wanted to get a good balance, right? I wanted to get, I expect Catherine to come on and be very excited about the team, go all the way, right? She's so close to the team. I wanted to get Bill, who got to call his first games with the New Jersey Devils last year, saw the rise of Jack Hughes and how great everything is. But then I also wanted, Alex has been covering this team when it's good and when it's bad, kind of like me, kind of like you. We've been around this, through the trials and tribulations of this team. I want to see where he's at. And then Dan Rice, 20 years covering this team. And obviously, he works for Pucks and Pitchforks. I am his editor. He's one of my boys, and he's a great friend of the podcast. But he's going to bring kind of that, he's always had a rosy outlook to this team, but to kind of get him on here and to kind of, shoot the stuff with him, he's going to give you that direct line. And then Ben Birnell is a guy who covers Utica with such veracity and such, like, he is as into it and as on top of it as any national reporter there is out there. One of the most, he will talk to the fans, he will have conversations with anybody about anything. Mm-hmm. Talk sports with you, talk Devils, talk Utica Comets. We're going to kind of keep it close to Utica Comets. There's a lot going on with them. Simon Nemeth, Graham Clark, Nico Dawes. I want to kind of know what the goaltending situation is down there. Sam, I didn't even realize this. Like, I've been so in the discussion for the Devils roster, and was Nemeth going to make it? Is where's Nolan Foote? And we find out he's injured. That I didn't even realize. Did you know Tyler Brennan didn't even make the Utica Comets? He got sent down to the ECHL. So, and I don't think that's going to hurt his development overall. I think if he could get a couple wins down there and he looks real good down there, then it's going to look good overall. You got two veterans over in Utica right now with Poultier and Kalgren. And then obviously you're going to get Nico Dawes there eventually. Brennan, if he gets a full season as a starter, wherever it is, as long as he's playing hockey, I think it'll be good. But I do want to talk about the roster. I kind of just went on a little bit of a rant there. We only got 5 minutes till we got Bill, so we gotta be fast and furious here, Sam. Did you have any surprises when the final roster came out?
Not really. I kind of expected Simon Nemeth to go down to Utica. I think that's a smart move. No need to rush him. It was already said, well documented by Lindy Ruff, not having two young defensemen on the blue line with Luke Hughes and obviously Simon Nemeth. So that was kind of expected. Alexander Holtz, I thought his performance during preseason has, I wouldn't say overly impressive, but he did what he had to do to get on the roster.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
NHL caliber.
What's that?
It's NHL caliber.
Yeah, and he came into camp ready to go. He did what they asked him to do after the exit interview. So, I just don't see anything alarming. Now, there were some things said over the summer, again, about Iker Schmid being down at Utica, and I was like, that's not possible. But that's the only thing that I was actually really looking for, because I didn't really believe it, but at the same time, I'm all about development. So, but that's my thoughts on the roster.
Yeah. I'm curious what would have happened if Kincaid didn't get hurt. That's what I'll say. I'm curious. Do I think that Kincaid should have been the backup? No. I definitely want Schmid. But Schmid also played his way into this roster. Like, if he was fighting for a job, like, he looked really good in the preseason.
Yeah.
So I think Vanacek's going to start the first game. You could just tell by the lineup that they have in practice. But if you told me yesterday that Schmid was going to start the first game, I wouldn't have been floored. He's looked that good. And you remember, like, Sam, 1 year ago, with how crazy last year was, 1 year ago feels like 4 years ago. Mackenzie Blackwood was our starting goalie at this time last year. Mackenzie Blackwood was the number one guy. He was the guy that was going to take this team to the next level, right? And now he's over in San Jose. You got Vanacek, you got Schmid, you got Dawes and Brennan, who are kind of looking at the future, and the storyline, we're probably not going to get to a lot. I think we may talk to Alex about it, but a lot of these other people you don't want to talk about. You want to talk about the Devils, but the big story that came out this week, Connor Hellebuyck off the table, right? That was the guy, right? That was the guy that everybody was going after and tying to the Devils. He's off the table. 7 years in Winnipeg, $8.5 million. I did write about it this week. It's on pucksandpitchforks.com.
It's a lot of money.
That is a do not buy for the Devils. I'm sure, honestly, it might be fine for the Jets, just because where the Jets are, who they have to pay, who they've already paid. They don't have a ton of really big contracts on the roster. They don't have a ton of really big contracts coming up. A lot of their prospects are in prospect parts like Lambert and stuff like that. The Devils aren't there. The Devils have to pay, and I wrote about this. I wrote about the players playing for contracts. Two that will stand out above anybody else is Dawson Mercer and Luke Hughes. You can pay Luke Hughes starting you can negotiate that contract starting next year, which I think Tom Fitzgerald will do. It just came out right before the podcast. Owen Power signed for $8.35 million per season. Former number one overall pick, a teammate of Luke Hughes. I think Luke Hughes' contract is going to look similar to that. 7 years, $8.35 million. He's going to come in around that Jack Hughes price. As long as he's not like what Jack Hughes looked like in his first year, as long as Luke Hughes looks like a very good defenseman that could be great or that's going to be great, I think you can see them sign that contract. And then you have Dawson Mercer's contract. I think he's going to give them a deal, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. And I think he's going to sign for a long time. But when you start giving out more and more and more of these contracts, you can't give a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, who's going to be 31 years old when the contract starts, $8.5 million.
Yeah. Definitely. Hey, I'm reading a lot of the comments in the YouTube Live and Facebook Live, but Facebook Live, David Moskowitz says, Bill Spaulding is awesome. He brings excitement to the game. Such a good fit with the Devils.
Listen, Steve Cangelosi filled some of the biggest shoes in the sport with
Doc Emmerich.
Right? And Steve Cangelosi did such a phenomenal job. He was one of the best in the business for while he was doing it. Then when Kanji left to do Red Bulls, you were like, I don't know about this. There's a lot of guys who I don't really like out there, and on other teams. You listen to these away broadcasts, and they're just too homerish. They're too, it's just, hard to listen to. And you get Bill Spaulding. Out of the gray skies comes this, Phoenix. And he's just honestly, he might be the rookie of the year because he was so phenomenal last year. I got to give all the props
to Bill Spaulding rookie of the year and Ellen Hughes MVP.
Ellen is doing us a service. She's,
absolutely.
Her genes, man. Honestly, the hockey genes come from mom. Dad definitely has hockey blood in him, but. Yep.
Yeah, I'm seeing all these compliments. I'm seeing all these compliments about Bill Spaulding. I mean, we are very lucky. As Devils fans, we are blessed. I blame the great broadcasters of the past for the attendance problems of the past. Now it's different. Now attendance is not a problem, and we still have that high level, and we know what we're talking about because we've had Doc Emmerich on. We've had Matt Lachlan. We've had Cangelosi on. Also Ken Danico. But anyway.
Chico?
Yeah, Chico. Yeah, how do you forget Chico? He may be on the big stage tomorrow at American Whiskey for pregame.
Ooh.
Yeah. The big stage is out in the middle of Edison
We have
Place.
so many teases, Sam.
Yeah,
So much has come out tonight.
All right. Enough. We're already overdue. All right, so our next guest, his name is Bill Spaulding, Devils play-by-play announcer for MSG Networks. You can find him on Twitter at Bill Spaulding. Bill, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words. I've been blown away since getting this job last year with the support and the community of Devils fans. So thank you so much for how welcoming you all have been. I love interacting with everybody, and glad I get a chance to chat with you guys tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. You know, we've. It's always hard to get the guys on the broadcast like you and Bryce and Ken, and because you're traveling, you got so much to do during the season, so we have to find these little pockets to talk to you, and it's so awesome to kind of get that, that thought process that you're seeing, because you're seeing the ice differently than we are. We're watching on TV, we're watching the arena, but you kind of get that bird's eye view, and you have to your brain I called hockey back in yesteryear, and it's so hard to quantify what it's like to have your brain work and to have interesting thoughts, right? While it's happening so fast. What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, this might sound weird, but I think it actually gets easier the higher the level of hockey is. I know that you'd think that it's way faster in the NHL, and that's true, but it's also, in a way, the players are more predictable because they make the right decisions more often than not. You do high school, and I found that for any sport I've done, basketball, football, any of that stuff. You call a high school game, and the guys might be going a lot slower, but it's so much sloppier, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. Here, you have to be able to kind of think ahead and anticipate. And sometimes they make the creative play that you're not anticipating, but a lot of times the play you're anticipating happens. So, for me, it's I just try to get, look at least one step away from the puck. So I'm paying attention to what's going on the puck, but you got to be aware of where the puck is going because, if you're looking down or looking away, something's going to happen. I think with the Devils, it's particularly fun in my role because the guys are so fast and so creative and so exciting. There are just so many players that when they're on the ice, you kind of you gravitate to them. Every time Jack Hughes is on the ice, I gravitate to what he's doing, and I almost hold my breath because I know something special can happen, even in a game when things aren't going well. I think back to that Carolina game on New Year's Day last year where Carolina was dominating for a period and a half. And all of a sudden, in soccer, you'd say it was against the run of play. Jack got the puck, went down the wing, beat a defender, cut in front, and scored. Devils ended up getting a point out of that game. So that makes my job fun and exciting because even on nights where things don't feel like they're going well, you feel like you're just one play away from some type of magic.
And that magic has a lot more eyes coming to the Devils every single game. People want to see magic when they want to see hockey. They want to see big plays. They want to see fun players, and the Devils have that. But it's so much different going into this year than it was last year. Even when the hype was going on last year, the team was in it. You don't really have time to pay attention.
Yeah.
Now they've had 6 months for everybody to blow smoke. And I'm curious, what do you think that's going to impact them at all?
I think for most of the players, it's more the way that the playoffs ended last year and the taste they kind of had in their mouth, both the positive taste from beating the Rangers and knowing that they can do that, but also the negative taste they kind of had from how that Carolina series went. That, to me, when I talk to the guys, is what was the bigger fuel this year. They are all about getting back to that point. They talk about how you get to the playoffs. You just want more of it. It's not oh, we've been here, we've done that. It's you get there, you realize how much more fun that is than regular season hockey, and you just want to get back to there and do it more. So I think that's been the major focus. I don't know whether it's something the players will feel in terms of pressure, because I got to tell you, guys seem to feel motivated but loose, excited but loose when I talk to them. But I think what they will get and they're aware of is, you're not going to sneak up on anybody. I remember the beginning of last year, I feel like first 10, 15 games of the season, we got the backup goalie in at least like half of those games, if not more, from the opposing team. By the end of the year, that wasn't happening anymore. I am going to guarantee you that we're not getting the backup goalie here early in the season unless there's the rare case where there's, say, a back-to-back for the team coming in. Like, we're going to get everybody's A goalie. We're going to get, everybody's best effort because they'll look at the Devils as a measuring stick. So I think that's the biggest challenge is you're going to have to bring it every night as the Devils because who the teams you're going up against are looking at this as one of the big games on their schedule now. So, you're probably not going to get by playing your C+ or B- game because more often than not, you're going to get that A level game from the team you're going up against.
That's so true. Honestly, the only reason you'd see backups at this point is if a team might be like, if they have a back-to-back and it's like Minnesota and New Jersey, and they're like, well, New Jersey's the better opponent. We might lose the 2 points anyway. Let's start, Vasilevsky against Minnesota. So that's kind of like that situation. We see the Devils kind of have to face that a couple times as well, where they're like, facing the Rangers and Boston. You start the starter against the Rangers, and you kind of send whoever was Blackwood or Schmidt or whoever the backup was at Boston and kind of hope for the best. And that actually led to a win against Boston last year when Blackwood kind of put out his best performance. But that's an interesting point.
Yeah, and I think again, for most of the guys, it won't affect what they do all that often, but they're not going to be able to sneak up on anybody this year. So that's the big key for this team in terms of taking that next step forward is dealing with that, dealing with the expectations. Again, I feel like you don't feel like it's a group that is tight when you're spending time with them here in the preseason. Like, they are just super excited and chomping at the bit to get playing. And I think that's still the youthful part of this team, even though obviously they have the experience now, still the 6th youngest team in the league. So you got guys who love playing hockey. They don't need 6 months of off-season rest, they want to get back out there and play again. And that's kind of the vibe I was getting for the last week was like, okay, let's get this camp over with and just have these games count.
And you got guys on the roster like Palat and Smith and Tierney who might be skewing that number, right? The stars are like 21, 22, 23, 24. So yeah, that's a great point about the age and kind of the passion, and then Lindy Ruff. We heard about his extension today, but he's a guy who's still, he's the veteran presence, right? He's the guy that's bringing that veteran style because he's been around so long. But speaking of players, you kind of mentioned the youth. There's some veterans, and they're still kind of like skewing young. But when you look at the players as a whole, is there like a guy you're really like focusing in on? Like, I don't want to say rooting for. I don't want to put you there, but a guy you're going to be like really like you saw something in preseason or something makes you really want to see what he does during the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my eyes are always on Jack Hughes just because, again, it's just such a game breaker. But that's the easy answer. So let's go past number one. I think a couple players that I'm watching closely for different reasons early in the year. I think Jesper Bratt looks so. He was obviously very good last year, but he looks so much better. I know it's just the preseason. I don't want to overhype the preseason, but his shot looks better. Talking to him, he was already one of the fastest players on the team, and he said he got faster this offseason, and he's controlling his speed so he can make plays at full speed even more effectively than last year. So the way that he and Hughes and Tyler Toffoli have seemed to combine together, I mean, we could be talking about a guy who could – maybe my hottest take is that I think he could flirt with 95, 100 points this yer if things go right, because
like
that line just seems to – gel so well. So you got my eye on Jesper Bratt there. And then I have my eye on Alex Holtz, like a lot of people do here, because I just want to see how he ends up fitting. I do think he is in a state where he is more fit to play at this speed. His foot speed is better. He's talked about how he thinks he can make decisions faster, because when we talk about if someone's got the pace to play at this level, it's not just the physical foot speed. It is how quickly do you process information? How quickly do you make decisions at the pace the Devils want to play? So I think he was doing those things better. But again, there's still parts of his game that are developing. The Devils coaches still talk about his board battles. They want to see him be a 200-foot player. And, in the setup he's been in the last few days where he would be with Palat and Haula, you've got two vets who play a 200-foot game that are there to push him. Looks like he'll still get power play time, so he's going to get the opportunities. And I think, if he succeeds, that is huge for the Devils in terms of their depth, because if you have that top 9 with Holtz hitting at his potential, it's hard to find a top 9 anywhere in the league that is as deep as that top 9 is.
Yeah, and then to have the shutdown line with McLeod and whether it's Bastian or Lazar and Tierney, like this team is so amazing with the forwards. And just to kind of go back to Brett real quick, just in case anybody didn't know, Brett led the league across preseason of any player in points, 9 points. Nobody else had 9 points. He also led the league in goals, tied with Robert Thomas of the St. Louis Blues with 5. So probably as good of a preseason as anybody in the NHL.
And again, I think just real quick on that, to me, the reason that I'm really encouraged by it is, it wasn't just like he was getting tap-in goals. I really think like you want to see things that look better than the year before when you were producing the job. I think his shot, same way that Jack took a big jump with his shot from a couple of years ago to last year, it seemed to me like his shot was really a lot heavier, scored wrist shots in the slot. He scored one-timer slap shots. So, he's always been a great playmaker and guy who can set things up. And I think he is poised to be an even better finisher this year as well.
So I kind of want to talk about, you came on last year. The team immediately became a world beater, right? You were obviously the good luck charm here. But they made a run. They made the playoffs, which was the goal, right? But then the goal became beat the Rangers. Once you beat the Rangers, I think the season became a success, right? You put in the books. Doesn't matter what happened in the next series. You won one from Carolina. It is what it is. But the season as a whole is a success because you beat the Rangers. What do the Devils have to do this year to walk away from this season and be like, that was a successful campaign?
Yeah, I am honestly interested what they feel internally, because last year it was very obvious. Like Lindy Ruff said it from the start. We want to be playing meaningful hockey games at the end of the year, he said, and we want to make the playoffs. So check. And then, as you said, once you're playing the Rangers in the first round, you kind of feel like you have to win that series as well, which they did. I'm sure they have internal goals this year that they are keeping a little closer to the vest. It's not something they've spoken all that publicly about, but I think like obviously you want to, with a group that is still so young, you just want to continue to see progress. So I mean, this is a team that can win the Stanley Cup, but I don't think it's cup or bust. I think you want to see this team go deeper. Is that you win 2 rounds of the playoffs? Is it that you win 3 rounds of the playoffs? I think you just want to see that they've learned some lessons from last year. They have a better feel of exactly what it takes to win in the postseason, and that I think I'd consider success. And that might mean that they might not even end up with as many points as they had last year. Like if they have 103 points but win a couple rounds in the playoffs, I think you'd say that is a better season than 112 points and not moving on in the playoffs. So I think guys have learned also how they'll have to manage their energy over the course of the year. So I wouldn't be shocked if, and I also feel like the league is better in the Eastern Conference as a whole. So, I don't know if it's going to take 113 points like Carolina had last year to win the division. You might see the Metro one with 106 points or 107 points, but you just want to see progress, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a good point. And it's hard to have progress when you had a record-breaking season, right? But
it is.
You kind of look to the playoffs, right? That's kind of where that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think at this point now, like, you just got to get to the playoffs, and now where the Devils are going to be throughout this entire window, it's about the playoffs is how you're going to determine whether the players will feel like it was a successful year or not.
Yeah, like if you have a Florida Panther season where it is stressful the entire time, but you make a run to the Stanley Cup final, that's a success, right? It doesn't matter the journey to get there; it's the final result. So I definitely agree. I think that playoff result is what's going to dictate what is a success or not. Lastly, before we let you go, Bill, and kind of promote everything that's going on at MSG, do you have any bold predictions? You've given us some of your small ones.
I feel like that
bold prediction.
Yeah, I feel like that Bratter prediction was probably a bold one. If I had to pick another prediction, I think that the Devils will click. I don't know how bold you'll think this is, but I would be shocked if they don't score at 25% on the power play this year. Just with how good these two balanced units have looked so far, I think that they're a 1 out of 4 team, maybe even better than that. And you do that, you're a top 5 power play unit in the league. So I think that'll be huge for this team, because I think as there will be some experience building on the back end, they may need to win some high scoring games early in the year. And I think the power play is going to give them some extra goals this year compared to last year.
So, before I let you go, I know that MSG has a lot going on. They've just created their brand new streaming service, which, when I lived in Florida, Bill, I had to go to extreme measures to see Devils games. And I feel like that's no longer the case, right? You got this MSG Plus app, the direct-to-consumer app. I know there's been cable brouhaha and people are canceling and people who have cable don't have MSG. So that's all settled, right? There's this new MSG Plus where they can get their Bill Spaulding
if you are in the market, you can download MSG Plus, and there are 3 different options. There's a per game subscription. You can pay $9.99 a game. There is a per month subscription, and there is a per year subscription, which is a discounted rate over the per month subscription. But the other big key is if you have a cable provider or like say Fubo TV as a streaming service or something like that gets MSG, then you get MSG Plus for free. So MSG Plus is free to you with your cable subscription. And that means that not only can you watch the games, but you get all the additional content that MSG Plus is going to be providing this year, which includes archive games, highlights, but also we're really investing into our feature storytelling this year. So like we had a media content day with the Devils a couple weeks ago. And, last year that we used that more to ask like questions that we were going to use on the first couple broadcasts about the games or things like that. This year we spent it really getting to know players off ice, build some content that we can put out over the course of the year for features. So that is, whether you have a cable subscription or not, MSG Plus should be a place you want to get to. And as you said, it answers the question for folks who've cut the cord of how can you still watch the Devils. MSG Plus gives you that option. We'd love to have you along with us. Our crew is so excited to all be back again this year. And, we love hearing from you throughout the year as well. So shoot us messages. It's great to interact. And we are going to have a lot of fun because I think this is going to be an extremely fun team.
And Bill, I assume just because you've seen these streaming services in their first year, they're always going all in, right? The features are going to be amazing. I think about it, and real quick before I let you go, but I think about like back in the day, like all you had is if you won the Stanley Cup, you got a feater video, right? That was it. You had to win the Stanley Cup to get the interviews with the players, the insight, the locker room stuff. Now, you got like the MSG has an entire team dedicated to these features, I think that it's just so cool to really get to know these players, especially now that you got a star-studded team.
Yeah, and a lot of star-studded personalities too. So I think that makes these features even better because we've got a lot of guys who are fun, but also like good at telling their stories. So it makes our job easier too. It's going to be great. And we're going to share a lot of that feature content on our broadcast throughout the year as well. So if you are someone who still likes to watch TV the traditional way and catch us that way, you won't miss out. But there's bonus content on MSG Plus. If you're a cable subscriber, again, it's free. And if not, 3 different subscription options for you.
And we love options here. Bill Spaulding, it's your first time on. I don't think it's going to be your last time on. Thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. Let's Go Devils podcast. Bill, I appreciate you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Go Devils.
Bill,
Go Devils. Bill.
That is Bill Spaulding of MSG Networks, Devils play-by-play announcer.
Are you crying already, Sam? It's the first interview. We got 4 more.
I was trying to hang on. Something got caught in my eye, and I was like, oh, crap. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh.
Lovely interview. Bill, I've heard so many good things about Bill. We've talked to Bill here and there, but you never want to, you want to find the right time before you make the pitch to come on and talk to us. And This felt like the right time.
It was all
And-
you. It was all you, Nick. I get stage fright when I ask. To be honest.
Yeah, it's fine. I got no shame. Like I don't know why. Like you should ask my parents. It was terrible for them. I'd say what I want. I do what I want. I want to do good things for people, so like it usually works out for me. But it's when I want an interview or if I want to haggle on a price, or it really works out in my favor.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
I want Dan Rice to join pucksandpitchforks.com.
Well, speaking of Dan Rice, he's in the Andy Green room. Yes, Dan Rice, pucksandpitchforks.com, credentialed writer. You can find him on Twitter at DRiceHockey. What's up, Dan? Uh-oh. Guess we're having a little audio issues. Oh, sorry about that.
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yep. That's
I got
on
you,
my
Dan.
end.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're good. See, Sam, you're stressing out over nothing, but we're good here. Dan, thank you for coming on. I know your fitness and your hectic schedule. You got a show right after we go off the air, so you're getting ready for that, but you're spending some time with us, giving us a little bit of time. We'll promote that in a minute. I want to jump right into the news from today. Lindy Ruff, multi-year contract. I don't want to say we're surprised, right? I'm surprised that it took until today, but what are your thoughts on Lindy Ruff earning that multi-year deal?
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm surprised that it took until today. I think we kind of knew this was done or in the process of being done at some point in the middle of the summer when Tom spoke to reporters, I guess after a trade or after some signings. But yeah, I think it's a great move. I mean, I have no qualms with it. He's the right fit for this team right now. And for fans that are saying like, oh, well, they're kind of winning in spite of him, like they would win with any coach. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I also don't think that fans often think like, I don't want this coach to coach, but you don't know who you want to bring in, right? Like, if you're going to let somebody go, you better have a really good idea of who you want to bring in. His record speaks for itself all time. And with this group, with the young kids that they have, the developing players, he's been really perfect, I think. And Fitz hit a home run, and multi-year can be 2 years, it can be 4 years, it can be 8 years. I think it's probably somewhere in the 2 to 3 year range. Probably one of them things where it has an option and they can keep extending it, or if he decides he wants to get to a certain point and then he moves into kind of like a special advisor role, because he is not a spring chicken, and that's no knock on Lindy. Like he's had a great career, and I love having him as the coach here. When you ask questions, he generally gives you a thoughtful answer, and for me that's always like that's what you look for as a journalist. You want somebody that's going to give you and I think he does a good job with that. Not only myself, but our reporters that are covering the team day to day, the Ryans and James and Christy, like and Amanda, everybody who works for the Devils, like he definitely answers the question. His track record speaks for itself, like I said. So I think it was a great move, and again, just a little surprised it took till the day before the season. Like even maybe they could have announced it before camp, but it's fine. It's not a big deal, and it's nice that it's out of the way and done, and we can move on to the season and what's going to be, I think, a really fun season.
Do you think he's motivated by any of those records? Like I know he's getting. I think he's like 15 wins away from the next spot on the all-time wins list. And I wrote an article early this offseason. Does Lindy Ruff go to the Hall of Fame with a Stanley Cup win? So I don't know if that's on his mind. Like I know legacy is big on these guys when they get later. Like, do you think any of that motivates him, or do you think he's just more of a like singular focus guy on the team right now?
I mean, honestly, I think he's a human, and all humans are kind of motivated by that, right? You want to be considered out of the best, and longevity is a great way to do that, right? And you mentioned 15 wins till I think fourth most wins all time, and then the next one is, I want to say it's Trotz at like another 80 wins. That's that would be a great season. I don't think that's going to happen this year though, but I could definitely see that happening over the next 2 years. Um, and you know, like I said, any human, I think you have that kind of pride where like, yeah, you want to be one of the best. And for me personally, I think whether or not he wins the Stanley Cup, he's probably a Hall of Famer already.
Mhm.
Say he gets the Devils to a conference final or a cup final and they don't win under his kind of reign, I still think he ends up getting in as a Hall of Famer. He's one of those hockey lifer guys. Like his fingerprints are all over those Sabres teams from the early OOs. The Dallas teams kind of saw the rise of Tyler Sagan and Jamie Benn. Like I think I've even said it on this show. Like I didn't know who Jamie Benn was before Lindy Ruff got there, and all of a sudden, you know, they really kind of took off. Is it
Mhm.
assistants? Is it guys kind of just growing into themselves? Probably a combination of all the three, but he clearly has this track record of being able to be successful with teams if you give him the right pieces. And Fitzgerald is more than giving him the right pieces. I think now the addition of Toffoli, right, bringing
Mhm.
Meyer in, locking him and Bratt up in the off season, like these guys are all set for the next, we'll say 5 to 6, 7, 8 years, and I'm sure they get to at least a conference final, if not a cup final, and if
Yeah.
not winning one, two, right? Maybe we would hope, but it's trending in that direction, and you know there's pitfalls and injuries and stuff like that, but they're on the right path, and now it's just let's see what happens, how it plays out.
Um, I'm curious. I see a lot of bold predictions, and we asked one for a bold prediction from Bill Spaulding of MSG right before, and he gave us. He thinks that Bratt could get between 95 and 100 points. So let's stick to the points predictions. I see a lot of people making points predictions for Jack Hughes, and their bold prediction, and these are NHL people, like these are overall people, and one of their bold predictions is Jack Hughes 120 plus points, north of 120 points. Dan, what are your thoughts when you see see a number like that, and do you think that's possible for Jack?
The first thought, like I saw that in the note that you sent me, and I was like 120 points, like that's a lot. But and then after a minute or two to kind of settle in, like this is the NHL now, right? Like this isn't
Mm-hmm.
the NHL 2 years ago where like the leading point scorer is gonna maybe get 90 points or maybe be a point a game guy. Um, the NHL is offense is trending up, offense sells, goals are sexy, right? Like everybody tunes in for the highlight reel goals. Um, he could probably put up 120 points. I wouldn't put it past him. Um, I think as long as he gets to around the same point total he had last year, like guys just really, it sounds simple, but I just think they have to kind of duplicate what they did last year, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna kind of catch up on a lot of teams. I don't think they're gonna have a 14-game win streak that's gonna put them in the top five of the NHL from December on. Um, but they have the pieces to be successful, and what does a full season with in the lineup on the power play and Jack having his brother there, I think that's a big boost as well. But yeah, 120 points, that would be awesome. That'd be especially these parts, that's unheard of territory. That wouldn't be my bold prediction, but
Do you have a bold prediction? I know you sent me one. It's coming out tomorrow. But do you have a different one than the one that's coming out tomorrow? Or you can spoil it. Whatever you want to do. If you want to use that to promote tomorrow.
uh, yeah, I kind of want to stick with what I was just kind of gonna look it up too, but it kind of just remembered in my weird brain. I predicted Dawson Mercer is gonna have a step forward where I think he was 12 points ahead of his pace in year two. I think he's kind of gonna do that again, and he finished with 58 points. I think he gets between 68, 70, 72 points this season, and he'll see enough time. You know, if again, injuries, guys move up and down the lineup, right? Guy sits out a game. Mercer moves up, plays a couple of games with Jack, gets a couple of points. He's going to get points on the power play. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to see some PK time. So he's going to have those opportunities where he's going to be on the ice, and that dude's just a hockey player. Like there's no two ways about it. Like I look at him, and this is a kid who's been with the Devils basically since they drafted him, right? And
Yeah.
he just has that look. Like sometimes it's like, and it's not a knock on some players that can't just make it right away. Those stories are awesome and cool too, but it's kind of badass to see like a kid just come in and like, yeah, he's a dog. He played 82 games. Like he probably could have been taken out some of those games to get a breather at the end of that first season, but he plowed through it. And we saw him get better last season. I think he finished 28, 29 goals. Like I could see a 30-30 season, 30-35. Like especially with the guys that he's going to be playing with. You see power play time and Timo and Jack and Nico and Brat and Dougie and Luke and on and on and on. Like he's going to have those opportunities to really take that next step. And I for one, I can't wait to see what he does this season. So that's my bold prediction for this season.
So earlier in the offseason, you talked about the Devils having the top 9 in the league, right? And even though it was a weird journey to get there, the lineup kind of fell into place as we expected, right? Toffoli with Hughes, Brad also up there, Nico Hischier with Meyer. I guess the one surprise is that Mercer landed with Nico instead of with Hughes. But then you got a Holtz on the third line with Holla and Mercer, and then the fourth line is pretty much what you expect. You got McLeod in the middle, then you got a rotation of Lazar, Tierney, probably Nolan Foote when he's back from injury, and Nathan Bastian. Do you still believe it? Do you still, like, now that it's settled, now that you see the top 9, see what they can do, is this the top 9 in the NHL?
Yeah, I still stand by it. I mean, Holtz is kind of, I guess, the X factor in the current top 9, but I think, again, guys are going to move up and down the lineup. You move a guy down. I'm not necessarily sold that Holtz is going to stick here the whole season.
Interesting.
Again, it's no knock on him. Like guys take different paths in development, and some take longer, and some don't eventually make it. But it's hard not to compare him to Mercer and from that same kind of draft, right? And Mercer feels like he's up here, and Holtz feels like he's somewhere in the middle. Is he one of those tweener guys? Is he Jesper Boquist? Like, and if he is, like, that's okay too. Like, that's not a knock on him, but I don't know if that's what they need right now. Like, I could see Foote coming back and Foote takes that spot, right? Or Bastian has a good run and they move him up, and you have Bash brothers with Lazar and Tierney on one side of on the other side of McLeod. Like, they can go. I just don't know if Holtz is gonna, like I said, stick the whole season. Well, it'll be interesting to see. They have back-to-back games. Again, injuries, guys get blocked shots, right? Maybe your hand swells up, those kind of things. So we'll see how it goes. But I stand by my statement. I still think they have the best top 9, and that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody when they're at the top of their game.
It's funny you brought up kind of like development and all that. That draft is so weird, right? Hockey Reference has this thing called quality score, and it's just kind of like it's its version of WAR or whatever you want to call it. It's like trying to like quantify all players into one quantifiable number. And the 2020 draft, which was one of the most touted drafts we've had in a while, maybe not at the very, very tippy top, like there wasn't a Bedard or a Hughes, but it was supposed to be like 25 people deep, right? That were all supposed to be very high level contributors, like Rossi and Lafreniere and Byfield and Stützle and then Quinn and Holtz and Sanderson and Drysdale. All these players. Dawson Mercer is 2 in quality score, second to Stützle. So ahead of Lafreniere, ahead of Quinn, ahead of all these players, ahead of Sanderson. Drysdale was hurt, so that kind of but like ahead of all these players. So when I think it does hurt Holtz a little bit to be on the same team as Mercer. If you took Mercer 7th overall and you took Holtz 18th overall, I don't think we have these conversations. Like, I don't think we care. I think we're excited that Holtz is on the third line, right? Like, am I kind of going off there?
100%, 100%. A lot of that, like for players on that day, you want to get drafted as high as you can, but deep down inside, they just want a shot. Like any player, and I talk to players on my show all the time, like they just want a shot. Like they just want to be able to get a chance to prove themselves. And when you do have that, and then there are expectations, especially from the fan base, right? Like the GM has said a couple of times, like we don't have anybody that does what he does as far as, and he's referring to the way he shoots the puck. When he's on, like we all see the highlight videos down in Utica, like he's a sniper. They need that at this level, and they need it to be like 25, 30 goals. Like that's what they're looking for. I don't know if that's there yet. I think it can be. It might be, he needs to play top 6 minutes. That's not gonna happen here. Like unless somebody gets hurt, like who would, like I don't think anybody out there is watching, listening. I don't think anybody would say, "Oh yeah, you could take so and so out and put him in the top 6." It doesn't work that way, and I don't know if maybe he goes to a different team, a different situation. A lot of that factors into how these guys succeed and do well. Like you mentioned Lafreniere and with the Rangers, like if that kid was allowed to develop the right way, he'd probably be a really good player and probably better than he is. But it's like they're always going to bring in these outside players to help them win, and then that kind of pushes other players' ice times down. It stunts the development. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think I said it here. I've written it at least on Twitter. Like the Rangers messed up last year when they brought in Kane and Tarasenko. Like they were fine. They didn't need those guys, but they wanted to have that kind of that experience or insurance, and it derailed them, especially against the Devils. Like we saw, the Devils started skating circles around them, and they figured out that we could still do our game and get knocked around a little bit, but playoffs is a little different style. Like maybe each shift you focus in a little bit more. Guys are taking hits to make plays now. They didn't beat themselves, and Patrick Kane he got dusted a couple of times on some of the end-to-end rushes. Right, it was like, man, like this. They can get their goals on the offensive end, but when you transition, and that's what the NHL is now, it's a big transition game. And how many times we see Jack and Brat score on these 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, the crisscross passing, and those older players, a lot of them can't keep up, and that's just reality. Like, yeah, I think we talked about Holtz, and I got on a little bit of a rant there.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we
sorry.
love it. Real quick, before we let you go, I do want to know, we have an article out from yours truly about awards and what awards. I've been writing this since 2018. It used to be in jest, almost in like maybe pie in the sky is a better word, right? But I've been writing since 2018, every single year. This is the first year that I'm like, these 5 guys could actually win these awards, right? I have picked 5 guys that could actually win awards. So if I told you who on this team, and it could be, coach, GM, and players, who is most likely to win an award this season?
That's tough. The first 2 that came to my mind was Nico with the Selke, because Bergeron finally read. If the Devils have another season like they had this past season, 50 wins, 100 points, first or second in the division, top 5 in the NHL, Nico probably gets that recognition. He's got he got enough votes, I think, last season, where it would be like, all right, like this dude is. Other people will start to take more notice and be like, all right, this guy is really legit. He did it back-to-back years. And the other one would be probably Luke Hughes. We all assume Bedard's going to win the Calder, right? But again, injuries happen. The Blackhawks aren't a great team. Luke's points might be inflated a little bit. Not that he's not a great player, but he's jumping into a team that's pretty well set. this isn't the 2018, 2019 Devils, like, or the,
Yeah.
2015 Devils where he's jumping in and playing top line minutes and really relied upon. I think he could kind of rack up some points on the power play. And just, he's compared a lot, to Makar, like the same kind of abilities, and that kind of sells right now. And everybody's kind of looking next one, right? Like everybody's saying Bedard is the next kind of Crosby, McDavid, that really top tier player, and Hughes is that next defenseman that's supposed to be up in that upper.
Yeah. And before I let you go, Dan, you're working on a lot. You're doing a lot with women's hockey. You're writing for Pucks and Pitchforks. Just give it a second to promote what you got going on. I know you have a podcast tonight. What you're thinking about next for Pucks and Pitchforks. What's everything? Where are you working on?
Yeah, so obviously the home opener is tomorrow for the Devils, and they gave us back-to-back games tomorrow and Friday. So I'll be at both of those games, gonna try and get a couple of stories out of that, and then we'll kind of go for there. Nothing really in the works as far as that. With the Ice Garden, you mentioned my podcast. I appreciate that. I'll be recording at in about an hour and 8 minutes on Twitter, the Twitterverse, or whatever we're calling it these days. It's called Around the Rink. We record live on Twitter, and then the next day or so, it's available wherever podcasts to listen to. Tonight we're going to have on, we try and have a guest every week. Myself, my co-host, Allie Morris, who used to play goaltender for the Minnesota Whitecaps. And tonight our guest is Nate Oliver, who was former GM of the Buffalo Buttes. He was also a former hockey writer with me at the Hockey Writers before I came over to work with you guys. And Nate and I had been friends for a while, and then it's kind of, we all kind of write like we're the GM and we want to make these decisions. Well, this guy did it. Like he went from writer to now you're running the team and you're making decisions on signing players and contracts and convincing players to come play in your team, right? It's women's hockey. They're not making a lot of money. And Nate is one of the nicest people I've ever met in the world. And everyone I ever spoke to that played for him kind of echoed that. Like he will go to bat for you 1,000 times out of 1,000 opportunities, give the players everything they needed to feel comfortable, to feel welcomed, to feel like they had an important part of the team and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a while since I've caught up with Nate. Obviously, the PHF doesn't exist anymore. A new league is starting. He's not a part of that. And he has some thoughts he wants to share on how things unfolded, I'm sure. And we take a lot of questions. I like doing the live show. We can take questions from listeners.
Live.
So live. So we get a lot of, we've had a couple of episodes where we had like 20 questions submitted and 20, 30, 40 people listening live. Like, it's pretty neat. It's a little bit of pressure when you see like, oh my God, this person is listening to me. Like she's a hockey Hall of Famer or this person who I really have a lot of respect for, like tuned in for 5 minutes. So that's pretty cool. And it's nice that we can, then put it on a podcast platform and reach more and more people. So, you can, like you guys said, you can follow me on Twitter at dricehockey, Dr. Ice Hockey, however you want to read it. And we try and do that once a week. Next week, we're actually going to have a gold medalist from the first ever women's USA team that won gold medal at the first Olympics. I'm not ready to spit it out just yet. I'm gonna reveal it tonight on the show. But again, you follow me on Twitter, you'll see her name pop up, and I'm excited to reveal that tonight, and excited to talk to Nate. Especially excited for the Devil season, and want to say again, thank you to you guys for having me on. Thanks for having me over at Pucks and Pitchforks again. This is year 3, right?
Yeah, I think so.
A couple of years or 3 years ago, like I didn't know where I was going to end up and how things were going to turn out, and here I am, year 3 with you guys, and entering my 20th season covering these games. 20 seasons, 21 years, because there was a lockout, and so that kind of sucked. But But yeah, it's crazy how time flies, and also like I feel old too. But I appreciate again just you guys having me on. People that click on the articles, everybody over at Pucks and Pitchforks does a great job. A lot of tremendous content. So thanks for everybody for reading us, and thanks to you guys for having me on tonight.
Dan Rice, Pucks and Pitchforks, the Ice Garden, one of the greats. Dan, I appreciate you coming on. You know we're going to have you on again soon. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Dan. Always good to see Dan. Good friend of the podcast. Now he's going on another podcast.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Sam. When they work with you, right? When you're their editor, you can steal a little extra time with them, right? We try to keep that 20 minutes, that tight 20 minutes, because we take care of our guests, but Dan's a friend. He's here to talk, and I mean, great insights all around. And I'm excited for that podcast. I want to know. Sam, I am an impulsive person. I want to know who the gold medalist is that's going to be on Dan's show. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I might jump off this podcast just to listen to find out who it is.
Yeah, throw it on in the background. We're doing some editing, right?
Yeah.
Just don't make any mistakes. I'll tell you this, Sam. I am. He made one point that I just kind of want to go over, the Holtz point, right? Mm-hmm. That's Twitter was ablaze the other day when they dropped Holtz from the second line to the third, or whatever, the Nico line to the Holo line, right? Twitter was on its horse. And on one hand, I get it, right? It is a demotion. Like, that is absolutely a demotion. Going from Nico Hischier as your center to Eric Hall as your center is different, right? But I think Halla can still excel there. He's gonna get this is why I don't think it's the demotion that we're talking about. He is on a power play, and the Devils are treating power plays different this year. There's not like one with Nico and Jack, right? That is not how it works. They're going to have the Jack line, which is Toffoli, Hughes, and Bratt on one, and then the Hischier line, which is Mercer, Hischier, and Meyer on another. Then they're going to have one extra forward on each. It looks like Holtz is going to be on. I'm sorry, I didn't see it today, so I didn't see which one he's on. I just see he's on a power play. Let me look to see if I can find it quickly before we have Alex on. But
I gotta tell you, Max in the YouTube live said the C word. I've heard it several times tonight in these interviews.
Content.
Oh, stop it! I hate that word.
Okay, so Holtz was with Hischier, Palat was with the Hughes line, right? And then Luke and Jack, who I've said for 4 months now, they're gonna put Luke Hughes on Jack Hughes' power play line. And everybody said I was nuts. Like, no, Dougie Hamilton is going to be with Jack this entire time. And I was like, you're wrong. You're wrong. Dougie Hamilton, line 2 power play. I didn't know that there wasn't going to be a line 2 power play, but I was right. Luke Hughes, Jack Hughes, the brotherly connection. They've had a bond since birth. You're not going to put them on the same power play. Are you crazy? Get out of here. But yeah, Holtz, to answer the question, Holtz, Hischier, Meyer, Mercer, Hamilton.
Yeah.
Lethal unit. Holtz could score 20 goals on that unit, Sam.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. This is where I'll give Lindy Ruff credit. And you've been on this horse the entire time. Lindy Ruff will change eventually. He will change eventually. And there are coaches. Yeah, I'm looking at Laviolette. I'm looking at, there's a couple guys who just will not change. Tortorella is the same guy. He will do the same thing over and over and over again. Lindy Ruff will eventually be like, all right, this really isn't working. I really had a thought about this. It's just not working. This is so different than what everybody else is doing on the power play. Not stacking power play 1, making sure you have 2 supreme units. And scary. You like what penalty kill are you going to go against? It's like, I'm going to go against Jack. Okay, cool. But now Timo Meyer and Nico Hischier, and then the rocket that is Holtz, and then you're putting Hamilton on that unit like a dynamo on the power play. Like Sam, I'm flabbergasted at how great these power play units are. And good job by Lindy Ruff. Good job by new assistant coach Travis Green putting these together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hey, do you know who's waiting in the Andy Green room right now?
Who's that?
That's Alex Chauvancy, good friend of the podcast from NJD on the Rush. You find him on Twitter at AlexC_NJD. Alex, how are you?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Well, you are starting off hour 2, which means we need to open up beer number 2 for the podcast because we got to get prepared. But Alex, Sam keeps saying this on the rush. So, I'm sure a lot of our fans have remembered who you used to work for, who you still work for. Can you tell us about the new gig before we jump into the interview?
Yeah, so pretty simple. I mean, I've been doing a podcast called NJ Devils on the Rush or NJD on the Rush since that's our Twitter handle since the start of last season with my good friend that I grew up with, and now I decided to expand it into a bit of a written thing with a Substack. I'm doing a little bit of a subscription fee on it, but I'm running it at 50% discounts through this week, through the weekend. And I probably will still be running it at yeah, exactly. And then I'll probably be running it at a discount next week too. I'm not sure what number yet, but there'll still be discounts on it pretty much all the time. Not really like too concerned about making big cash off it at first. I'm just trying to build the subscriber base there. So there'll be some free content here and there as well that from what I've seen so far, it will definitely help get some subscribers, even if they just subscribe for free at first, maybe you get a free subscriber, they like the content, and they decide to pay, which I've seen a couple times already too. So I'm excited about it. I decided to do it now because just like I know starting up one of these things takes time to build up. Like you're not going to get 1,000 subscribers in 1 week or 1 day or even 1 month. It takes a long time to put stuff like this, especially if you want paid subscribers. And, I think to get it to a point where I want to make a living off it, I would think it might take something like 2 to 3 years where I'm making like a legit living off it. So, I don't want to dox myself here, but at my age, I got to start kind of taking a chance on it now. So that's why I decided to do it now. And yeah, I know there'll be like times where there won't be that many there'll be like dips and rises and how many people subscribe to it, and people life is tough and you can't afford to pay for something right away or something like that. So I knew what I was getting into, what I was doing it, what I'm expecting from it, and I know that it's going to take time to build up. It's not like I thought like, hey, I'm going to get 1,000 subscribers on day one. That's just not possible. So
yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with it so far, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Hey, listen, like, and this is what I tell a lot of people who get into this game. I made $30 on my first month's paycheck at Fansided. $30.
Yeah.
But you grind and you grind and you grind and you grind, and now I make a decent amount of money. So I don't want to dox myself as with that, but writing for Fansided is as lucrative as any writing job is going to be, while also having another job. So I'm sure that's what you're looking for too. You're just looking to kind of see like where you can get, how you can be, make that extra money for the work you're doing, and you've built a subscriber base through your social media movements, through you've been working at multiple different blogs, you've been building that kind of following. So you've been doing great work, Alex, and this is why we have you on as much as we've had, because we always love the work you're putting out. It's some I have limited time because we have to write so much. So when I see something and I have to read it, like that tells us something. And one of those pieces. So I am going to go to the old gig real quick. Then we'll go back.
Yeah, no problem. I'm still with them,
Yeah,
I'm still
the
with
hockey
them.
writers. I was looking. I was doing research on the guests. I was like, all right, who's the 2024 free agents? And that was something I wrote about. I wrote about who are the players playing for contracts, and the guy. There's Mercer. There's I have Luke Hughes on there because he's eligible, and there's other like little pieces. But the guy is Toffoli, right? Tyler Toffoli is the guy that not only the Devils are seeing if they want to pay, but other teams are seeing if they want to kind of bring in as an unrestricted free agent. So, would you consider just alleviating that and signing him now? Like, is this a guy that you want to kind of put your money towards?
Yeah, it's a tricky question too, because like if he's going to be playing with Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes, and then we know Ruff will change his line combos pretty frequently, but you'd have to assume those are probably going to end up being his most common line mates this season. That there's a chance he could come close to replicating what he did in Calgary last season. I still don't think he's going to get to like 34 goals and 73 points. I think it'd be probably closer to like a 30-30 season, somewhere around there. But even then, it'd probably be like a $6 million cap hit on his next extension, somewhere, I would say somewhere in between $6 and $7 million. I think, and we know the cap also is going to rise probably about to around 88 million next year. I think that's what they're projecting, a little bit under there. So I think they'll have the cap space in that regard to do it. So we'll see. I think I would just wait until the end of the season. You do take the risk of him popping off again with Bratt and Hughes, especially if he's going to get some extra points on the power play too. But I think it's better just to wait until the end of the season, because say he does regress this season and you don't get the production you're kind of expecting from him, then maybe you sign him to a contract you might regret, which I'm not really anticipating, but that's also a possibility.
Yeah, and you know what, Alex? I was surprised. He hasn't hit 30 goals. Prior to last season, he hadn't hit 30 goals since 2015-16. And there's injuries, there's COVID, there's shortened seasons, there's whatever. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that. But I was kind of floored that he hasn't scored 30 since he was with the Kings.
Yeah, there was a couple of seasons where he like produced the 30-goal paces, but like you said, there was like either the COVID shortened season, or he was injured maybe and he didn't play like the full like 82 games. But I remember looking it up when I wrote about him like back in June, when I was like, yeah, the Devils should definitely go after this guy. I was like, I was kind of surprised. I thought he had more 30-goal season campaigns, but then I like looked at his stats. I'm like, okay, well, there was the COVID shortened season. He had like 28 goals there with Montreal or whatever it was. So like he would have hit 30 if that was a full season. He was really good. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the risk you run. If he pops off, then you might not be able to afford him. But like you're also saying too, like as of now, at least next year's 20 free agent class looks kind of ridiculous at this point, even after Hellebuck and Scheifele re-signed and Backlund and Zuccarello. It's just a really, really deep free agent class at this point. So if they don't re-sign Toffoli, I think they're going to have options next summer to kind of replace him if that's the case, if they think Toffoli's just too far out of their price range. But I think they will end up getting something done if he produces and they think he's a really good fit for Jack Hughes.
So you've been doing takeaways for the preseason, and that's one of we love having you on. But that when I saw those, I was like, all right, let me talk to him, because I want a guy who's looking at the preseason like with that really analytical eye, really like kind of dissecting every single thing that's happening. And I want to know, what did you take away from it? When you came out of the preseason, 7-0, only team that to win every single game, first team I think in like 4 or 5 years to win every single preseason game. What were your takeaways? What were the main takeaways from the preseason?
Yeah, so for the preseason, I don't really look too much as like at the team in general. I kind of try to focus on individual performances. So like some of the good individual performances, I thought every goalie that played for the Devils this preseason, I thought was pretty good. And even Erik Källgren, I thought he looked like he would be a solid number 3 if they need him to play this season. Akira had that bad first game against the Islanders, but then he followed up in the finale with a shutout against like an Islanders lineup that was basically their entire NHL lineup. So that was positive. I was heading into the preseason, I was like a little concerned that Vanacek maybe just had the whole summer to think about his playoff struggles and like thought maybe there'd be a little hangover there, but at least based on the preseason, that doesn't look like that was the case. He was pretty good in the preseason as well. On the bad side of things, and I think most of people would probably say this is like Luke Hughes definitely struggled in the preseason at 5-on-5. Thought he did some good things on the power play, but at 5-on-5, he finished with like a 31.5 expected goals percentage. And in the preseason, you always want to take these kind of stats with a grain of salt because it's just the preseason. And I don't have like any long-term concerns with him. I just think in the short term, they might have to manage his minutes, kind of keep him sheltered a little bit, which, I mean, we see he's on the third pair with Brendan Smith, I think, in practice today. So I think that's how Lindy is going to start him off, which is probably best. Simon Nemitz, they sent him down, but you could tell it's getting close for him. I think he's still got some things to work on defensively. The offensive game definitely improved with him. He's improved puck skills. I thought he looked stronger this preseason too. He wasn't really getting knocked off the puck all that often. Good example of that was the shorthanded goal he scored against the Islanders. I don't remember who was chasing him, but I think it might have been Brock Nelson. But he just kind of like powered past Nelson. It wasn't really an issue. And then obviously Brad Hughes to Foley line looked really good too in the preseason. So no surprise there that Lindy's sticking with them to start the regular season. I guess one person that everyone wants to know about is Alexander Holtz. I thought it was a mixed bag for him in the preseason. I thought off the puck he had some good moments, but I was expecting a little bit more from him on the puck. I didn't think he was aggressive enough when it came to shooting and playmaking. He had like some moments. Obviously, he had a couple of goals, but I thought it was more in spurts and it was a little bit too inconsistent, which is why and I think I caught the end of that. I think I caught the end of you talking about like Holtz getting dropped to the third line there before I came on. That's why I think Lindy dropped him to the line with Halla and Palat right now. I think, especially based on last season, that Mercer's a better fit in the top six. So Holtz would be a question mark for me, and we'll see how it goes. I didn't think he was terrible in the preseason. So I think if he can just, get on the puck a little more and do what they drafted him to do, just shoot, and he's a pretty underrated playmaker too. He'll be fine, but we'll see what happens there.
I think Holtz is fine. I'm just being honest. I think he's fine.
I think so. I do too.
He's a third line guy right now. Like that's what he is. He's not good enough to be in the top six. This top six. He's probably good enough to be in the Sharks top six, or the Ducks top six, or the Kings top six even. But he's not good enough to be in this top six. So it is what it is. But I think him with Hall and Palat, it's going to go well. Right? Like, they don't need Palat and Haller to be the shutdown line. That's what you have McLeod's line for. So I think he's going to do fine. I want to talk about a guy who's not on the Devils. Let's talk about Connor Hellebuyck. You wrote about it. I wrote about it. A lot of the guys who write about the Devils wrote about it, even though Connor Hellebuyck has never been on the Devils and probably never will be. That contract looks bad. Maybe not for the Jets, but that contract looks like it would be very bad for the Devils. So give me just your thoughts of what were your thoughts when you first saw that signing?
Oh, when I first saw that signing, I was like, I didn't even notice Hellebuyck was in the signing. I just saw Mark Scheifele's name, and then I looked at it again. I was like, oh, well, Connor Hellebuyck is in this too. It's not just Mark Scheifele. Which I wasn't as surprised about Scheifele re-signing, but Connor Hellebuyck, I was pretty, just based on what we heard this offseason, I was like, okay, I mean, he'll start the season there, but it doesn't look like he's staying in Winnipeg. And then they just announced out of the blue that Connor Hellebuyck signed for a 7-year extension worth $8.5 million. And, I think it was Pierre LeBrun who reported in the summer that he was looking for Vasilevsky type money, and he didn't quite get Vasilevsky money, but he came pretty close to it. Which I think Vasilevsky's at like $9.5 million a year. I don't think the cap hit would have been too much of an issue for the Devils, but I could not imagine Fitz going 7-year extension on Hellebuyck. That's going to take him to his age 38 season, I think. Which I think you probably still have an elite goalie there for like the first half of the contract, but the back half of it could be pretty problematic, even with the cap probably going to be rising most of those years. You still don't want to sign bad contracts. So I guess in a way, it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise that the Jets signed him to a 7-year, $8.5 million extension, because I would think now that probably shuts the door on any possibility of the Devils trading for him. But I guess never say never, but I think it's probably unlikely at this point.
So look into your crystal ball. And you see it's March or it's April. Now we're going to playoffs. Is the tandem Schmid and Vanacek?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has more to do with Akira Schmid. Like if he's posting a 9.15 to like 9.20 save percentage heading into towards the trade deadline again, and if Vanacek is still doing what he does in the regular season at like 9.10 or whatever, Yeah, I think Fitz will be comfortable there. It also like just it's tough to say like what goalies are going to be available. Like I think Boston is going to be in the playoff race, so like I don't really see them trading Ullmark or Swayman. I guess like the one guy you would turn to now is like what happens with UC Saros in Nashville if the Predators are out of the picture. Would they consider trading him at the deadline in March? So maybe Fitz would go there because he's got, I think, 2 years left, included this one at just a $5 million cap hit, which makes a lot of sense for the Devils. But time will tell there. I like going back to your original question. I think it'd probably be Vanacek and Schmidt as the tandem, and I think Fitz will look to add to other parts of the roster ahead of the deadline. That would be my prediction at this time.
So let's look at the division. Do you think that this team could beat Carolina? Carolina like loaded up this offseason, and they were already really good last offseason. Do you think the Devils have enough to win the Metro?
Yeah, I mean they only came 1 point shy of Carolina this year, or last season. But I like what Carolina did a lot this offseason. I mean, this is what good franchises do. They identify what they need and they target the players that fit their system. And they did exactly that with Dmitry Orlov. He doesn't have to play first pair minutes there because of Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns. Brett Pesce and Orlov second pair, that's better than a lot of second pairs around the NHL. They looked at Michael Bunting and everyone knows the Canes love to play off the forecheck. That's what Bunting does, so he fits perfect there. He's not like the elite goal scorer they need, obviously, but he gives them more scoring depth and fits perfectly what they want to do. I think the Devils, where they have an advantage and gives you hope that they could catch Carolina for first, is they have much more dynamic forwards up front. Mm-hmm. Like Carolina, they got some good players up front. Martin Necas, he's a good player. Obviously, Sebastian Aho is great. Same with Andrei Svechnikov, but they're not like the elite game breakers that obviously Jack Hughes and even Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier are. And you could probably throw Timo Meier in that mix too. I think you could make an argument that he's on the level of Svechnikov and those guys, but Meier as well. So I think that's the advantage that Carolina or the Devils would have over Carolina. It's just you look at that Carolina blue line and my God, it's definitely the best
ridiculous
defense unit. Yeah, it's really good. They must have the best blue line in the NHL. So it'll be tough. I think they can do it, but my prediction for the Devils, they finish second behind Carolina again.
Alex Chauvancy, NJD on the rush. Hockey writers still writing around. Promote what you got on the Substack. What's coming up next? What do you got for opening night tomorrow night?
Yeah, so I'll be doing a game preview of the Carolina, New Jersey, and Detroit. That will probably be free since it's the first game of the season. Make that unlocked to everyone. For the hockey writers, I'm still doing like NHL at large pieces tomorrow. So I'm doing Stanley Cup contenders from each conference, starting with the Western Conference. So I'll have that out to 3 Stanley Cup contenders from the Western Conference, and then either Friday or Saturday I'll have Eastern Conference Stanley Cup contenders. The Devils will probably be one of those teams, so be on the lookout for that. Yes, They will be among the 3. Yeah, they will be most likely be among the 3 or 4 teams that pick from the Eastern Conference that could win the Stanley Cup. So be on the lookout for that. And then, the podcast. Me and my co-host usually record Sunday nights. Depends on the Devils' schedule a little bit, but that's out weekly, and we usually post those on Monday. So, lots going on right now. Substack. Since I got a back-to-back, I probably won't do takeaways for the games until Saturday. I'll just probably do takeaways for both games, what stood out. And, of course, like I said before, 50% discount running on it through Sunday. I'm leaning towards doing the 50% discount next week, too. But even if it's not, it's still going to be something like 35-40%. So, if you want to get in on the fun, subscribe there. You can find me at AlexC_NJD on Twitter. And I got links to subscribe to the Substack there where you can get your discounts. So a lot of stuff going on right now.
Alex Chauvancy, give him your money. Like he's deserved it. He's worked really hard over the years. He's one of the analytic dynamos that's covering the Devils. He will explain the numbers in a way that even Sam Wu will understand, and it's the reason why you want to subscribe to the Substack. But Alex. Thank you so. Oh no! So what did you say? What were you gonna say, Sam?
I'm just analytic illiterate, but Alex Chauvancy. Put your money
Alex
on
helps
him.
you out. Alex
Yeah.
will walk you through it. Alex, thanks so much for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Enjoy the games the next couple days.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Yep. Thanks.
And Sam, we're going back to back.
Oh, of course.
We're ready. This is the second hour. This is when, like, I don't want to sleep tonight. I want to be pumped for this Devil season. I want to be thinking about Jack Hughes. I want to think about Nico Hischier. I want to think about Luke. And I want to think about Catherine Bogart.
Of
who's
course.
doing the pregame and the postgame shows and been killing the game on social media. So you want to introduce the guest? I stole your job.
You know what? I'll let in a little secret, okay? Because sometimes people ask behind the scenes how we do it on this podcast. Because we do the game day live and Devils After Dark too. While I'm setting up, sometimes there are times where we're going live late, is because I'm watching Catherine Bogart as well. So sometimes I have it in the background when Scotty's going solo. True story. Anyway, our next guest, you all know her, good friend of the podcast, Catherine Bogart, New Jersey Devils reporter, producer, and talent extraordinaire. You find her on Twitter at Catherine Bogart. Catherine, how are you tonight?
Oh, I got no audio, Sam.
Yeah, something's not right.
Try.
Here.
Let's see this.
Oh,
Am I
okay.
here?
Yeah.
It was actually not on my end, but you can blame
It's not
me
on
anyway.
you, Sam. But I did say thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I love being able to chat with you guys. It's always a blast.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And then, we only got limited time with you, so we want to jump right in. You've been watching this team all preseason. You've been doing you've been catching what they've been doing. What did you learn? What did you learn from training camp until today about the 2023-24 New Jersey Devils?
I think that the commitment is there even stronger, which I can't believe I'm saying because the commitment was there last season. This team last year came in and said, we know we're good. We're going to really prove some people wrong in the NHL, and they did. And that commitment to still prove everyone wrong is still there. And I think that's so important because the second you think you've hit that mountaintop, there's another mountain you should be focusing your aims on. And I think this team has so much depth, which was something that we knew, but it was awesome to see at a training camp, to see so many great players that were putting in viable spots, that they were putting in a fight to make this main roster. And even with this main roster, there's still plenty of talent that's there. That what lines are you going to put someone on? Who's going to be on the power play? Who's going to be on the penalty kill? It's the final minutes of a game. Who's going to be called upon? And there's just so much depth, which creates internal competition in a really healthy way. And these players love the internal competition. But something that stuck out with me from training camp, and I've seen it with some of the most successful teams I've covered outside of the Devils, when you have that team first mentality, that's when you win. I've seen it covering USA hockey teams that have won gold medals at world championships. And every single one of those teams, they all took a little bit aside and bought in for the team first. And that led them to gold medals. And I see that with this Devils team, that everyone knows they have a role and they want to do as much as they can, but they trust the system. They trust the coaches. They trust each other. And I think that it wasn't necessarily surprising to see, but it was very evident in training camp.
So you said something that kind of stuck out to me there, and it's prove wrong, right? There's two things that kind of speak to me is that, A, there's a ton of outside noise, right? People are going to pick the Devils to win the Stanley Cup, and that hasn't happened since like the early 2000s. Like realistically, like people have not been on this train for a long, long time. And proving wrong tells me that they're doing their best to ignore that, right? Like they want to be the underdog. They want to be the team that's being doubted. So with all this noise and all this expectation from the outside world, do you think that's going to have effect? And what kind of effect will that have on this team as a whole?
I don't think it'll have the impact that most people would think. This whole high expectations is something that the Devils have held themselves accountable to before the rest of the league did. Last year, I remember many players in that locker room, first times that we were talking with them after the summer, or even the first time we were talking to some of the new guys, they said, we know this is a good group. We know that there's a lot of really young talent. And yes, the previous years, they weren't playing amazing every game, but they had really strong games against some of the best teams in the NHL to show the promise of the future. And then last season, you go on the 13-game win streak at the start of the year, and that's when people started to notice. But that was the expectation that the Devils had from the start. They knew that they were going to win a lot of games, and they knew that playoffs were the goal. They did that. They make it to the second round. So now the expectations, yes, the rest of the league saying they're one of the top teams. They could be a Stanley Cup competitor. There's a lot of people saying all these things, but the Devils know this expectation is something they've had set for years. They, as the 76ers always said, trust the process. They have known that it was a multi-year thing to build up, to develop the young core of players, to bring in some veteran sharpshooters who can also add in, but to trust and give time for these stars to develop, because once it did, and once they had this very strong winning culture that has been built from the top down, it would lead to the success. And that was just a taste of it last year. And I think the expectation, yes, is there for them to be very successful, but they know they can be successful because they've already had this expectation of themselves.
That's a good point, right? That, like, expectations are what you make of them. It sounds like the Devils aren't really making anything of them, right? Like, they're just like, or I should say, they aren't making anything of my expectations or your expectations or anybody else who's like outside of that locker room, right? They're only counting on their own.
Right. And well, so when I started with this team 5 seasons ago, they were definitely
Wow, that blows my mind. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. But...
It blows my mind as well. I'm so fortunate to be here coming back from my 5th season. I truly cannot say better things about my experience working with this team and with Prudential Center. But when I entered that first season, they were the hunters. They were the ones who were trying to, when big teams came in, when the Stanley Cup champs came in, they wanted to win those games and show, hey, we're good. And you had Jack Hughes in his debut year. Nico Hischier was only a couple of years in. So there's all these core pieces that now have developed into these superstars that everyone notices. And then last year, they knew they were going to start to be hunted. And they were. In the second half of the year, teams came into this building saying, we need to beat the Devils and make a statement win. And this year, that just continues. There's going to be a circle on the calendar for a lot of these teams, especially those young teams trying to develop just like the Devils did, saying, we need to beat this team. We need to show up. And that sort of pressure is something that some of the veterans in this group know a lot about, including Andre Palat, who, when he was with the Tampa Bay Lightning, they were the hunted. So he knew, and he talked about this a little bit the other day, about how they knew they had to show up every night, and it wasn't going to be their night every game, but they needed to fight and find ways to win and come together as a whole. And I think having these veteran voices in the locker room and bringing in Toffoli, and I know he's been spoken about on this show a couple times already, bringing in these voices, Eric Holla, all these guys, Brendan Smith, they all understand what it takes to win. And they understand how teams can defy expectations, how teams can focus in on themselves. And they just want to be better every game because they want to be better every game, not because they need to validate it for someone else. And I think that's so important. And that's honestly how we all should live our lives. We shouldn't worry about what other people think about us. We need to compete with ourselves to be the best that we can be. And that's when teams are successful, when they focus inwards and they're saying, how can we be better? How can we play Devils hockey? And that was the message last year, the year before that. We just want to play our own hockey. We want to focus on ourselves. Of course, you have a scouting report on another team, but they knew they could be successful if they took over this game and made it theirs. And that's what they want to focus on.
So you look at this team, and like I said, you've had a keen eye on them throughout the preseason. You've seen, I think the roster was like 60-something players when it first started, now down to 23. Now that you know those 23, plus I think there's 4 on IR, so we'll say 27. Now that you know those 27 players are on the Devils, so as we start the season October 12th, who is somebody who's caught your eye? Is somebody you're like, I want to see what he looks like in December and March and, when the playoffs start? Like, who's somebody who's you're really going to be paying attention to?
I'm very excited you asked this because Palat is one player I am so excited to watch. He started last year 3 goals in 6 games, and he was really showing up strong. And everyone's like, this is the game changer that was with the Lightning that everyone loved. And actually, I want to pull up a quote from Michael Russo from The Athletic. He wrote about Palat with the Lightning, and this is from John Cooper, his former head coach. All I can say about Palat is he plays with some of the best players in the world every year. But if you ask the other 2 players on his line, they would talk about him maybe the most. And I think that stands out so much to me. And I remember reading this when Palat was signing with the Devils, because you have one of the best coaches in the game. And he's saying that this guy's playing with 2 of the best players on this Stanley Cup worthy team. And they're going to say Palat's the difference maker. I think with his groin injury last year, he wasn't able to really get the time off to rest and recover fully since he was in the season. He was able to come back and still have an impact. But I expect this year he's going to have even more of an impact. His first practice of training camp, I was just like, oh, Palat, there we go. He was showing up very strong. He was scoring in all these scrimmages. He just found a lot of chemistry with a lot of different people quickly. And I think he is such a difference maker when it comes to being a winner. And he's already been such a help in the locker room and off the ice. And I'm excited for him. He says he feels really healthy. He finally had a little bit longer of an off season to recover, which is exactly what he needed. I mean, going to 3 straight Cup finals is kind of hard on your body, and then you get hurt your next season after. So I'm really excited to see how he's able to now be settled in the Devils system to explode and really show that he is that guy no matter who he's playing with. He's probably going to be the guy that they're crediting a lot of their success to.
So while others are going to credit Palat, a lot of us, the jamokes like myself, are going to credit Jack Hughes. And, we were talking with Dan Rice earlier. He works with me at Pucks and Pitchforks. Yep. And I've seen a lot of predictions for like 120 points, like a lot of these pie in the sky numbers. And then you see those predictions and then you equate it with like, he has the 2nd highest selling jersey in the league next to Connor Bedard, who's on an original 6 team, the 3rd biggest, metro area in the country, in the US. And you take all of these things. How can Jack encore breaking the franchise record? What he did last year, how does he bring it to an encore in 2023-24?
I really believe he will hit 100. I really do. He was so close last year. And Jack has really been such an incredible player to cover. He is phenomenal on the ice. The skill he has, his ability to just absolutely take over a game and be that person that everyone watches and you just watch him and you're like, this guy is so talented. His hockey IQ is off the charts. His speed is unbelievable. His skills, I mean, you all know this. It's Jack Hughes. He is a superstar. And I really think he's going to continue to develop into that. And I'm very excited to see who he's paired up with this year. If it is someone like Toffoli, I really think that they could be a very powerful offensive duo on the Devils. And you add in Jesper Bratt's speed as well. I mean, that just sounds like an absolutely incredible line. But with Jack, I think it's just seeing him continue to grow his individual game, but I also think grow his leadership on this team. He now has his younger brother who made the opening night roster with him. And Luke has always been able to train with both of his brothers. And I think that's been so big for his development. But I'm excited to see how Jack also continues to grow with this team, because he is a cornerstone of this franchise for a reason. He's a wonderful player, and he's an even better person away from the game. And I'm really just so excited for his own personal success this year. But he is also such a big team guy that his personal success will also help the team. And I think he'll take a lot of pride in that as well, as he did last year. And it just should be a really strong year for him. And I hope it's, the 3 digits for him for points this year.
Yeah, see, you're making such good points that my phone kept going off to say that, like, ding, yeah, like Catherine's got it right on the nose, right? Like, I don't, maybe that was like that government like alarm saying the Devils are great, right? Like they were sending that emergency system
Alert.
to test you for how great the Devils are going to be, right? No, they I love what you're saying, but you made a point. I have to follow up with this before I let you go and kind of promote what you're doing for the Devils. I have to follow up, like, so you think that Jack Hughes having his younger brother in the locker room and on the team, you think that's going to increase his leadership? Like as a whole, you think he's going to be a better leader, more of a leader because of that presence of his younger brother?
I don't think that's necessarily correlated. I just think it's a really cool thing for him. He's really grown as a leader in this locker room over the past few years. And of course, you can't really become the leader in the locker room in your first or second seasons. It's just you're still figuring out how to do the NHL. Like that's a pretty hard adjustment to already get used to, especially coming in as an 18-year-old. But I'm really excited to see him to be able to help lead his brother into this transition of playing in the NHL. And maybe that's a better way to put it. I think he's already been such a strong leader for this team. And I think just having his brother there is such a special, unique thing that so few people get to experience working with a sibling, especially working with a sibling as a professional athlete on an NHL team together. I think that's just such a awesome thing. And it's great for the whole Hughes family that 3 sons, they're all in the NHL. So I'm excited just to see Jack's leadership continue this year. He's always been so great with our community events. He's always been a huge proponent of wanting to be out in the community, being a part of this New Jersey community. And I'm just really excited to see him and his brother both be able to find even more success here in New Jersey with the Devils.
And listen, I bet you've been thinking about like all the stories you get to write, right? Like all the brotherly love stories, like going to Philly, the brotherly, like tying all that together. Like that's going to be super cool. And I got to say, I've been reading you for apparently 5 years now, which again blows my mind. That is insane.
Technically, it's 4 years, but 5 seasons. The whole COVID season, like I don't know how it's warped things, but I'm 5th season, 4th year.
Yeah. It's so okay, but it's still like
a long time.
Reading your stuff. I honestly like so many times you get this story, and I'm just like jealous, right? Like as a writer, I'm just like jealous that you found the story, or you found the stat, or you found this like this feature, and so I'm so excited to see what you're doing this year. I know you're doing the pre and the post game, but hopefully I still get to kind of see like the Catherine Bogart personality in those stories. Let everybody know everything you're doing for the New Jersey Devils this year and how you're going to progress that coverage, now covering a really good team.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. And first off, huge thank you to our whole organization, especially our hockey operations and PR, Pete and Nick, and them specifically have been able to allow us to tell such great stories. And that's a whole buy-in from everyone from the top down. And then also from our own marketing side. Our head of the whole marketing team, Jillian Frechette, has always helped us tell these amazing stories. And our content team has been so strong over the years. I'm just fortunate to be a part of it. But we have some really fun things planned this year. We always want to tell those stories that you can't necessarily get by just seeing a score sheet. And I think that's something that I'm challenging myself to do a little bit more this year. I will be doing a new show this year for In Arena. It's a warm-up show. If you've been to some preseason games, you will have already seen it. But we do a quick warm-up show. It's about 5 minutes right after the players leave the ice, before all the videos get going. And we cover everything, including our Devil in Focus presented by Nerd Focus. We go over Cat's Keys, which are some of the things that we need to have the Devils focus on to get a win. And we're going to bring some really cool features into this warm-up show. So I'm very excited about that. We've had a couple shows now from the preseason games that have gone wonderfully. And that's a huge thank you to our game presentation crew, because they have helped me really create something special. And we'll continue to do the intermission shows in Arena as well throughout home games. And then we're just going to continue with our features, and the whole content team has really we all strive to really just bring such good coverage. And I'm really just so excited to work with everyone. I know Amanda Stein and Sam Kassan have been doing amazing work as well. And I want to give them a shout out, because without them, we would not be as strong as we are as a content department. So it's going to be a very exciting year. I can't say too much now, but just keep it locked on the Devils social and
more
website,
teases.
because we're always trying to tell these stories and bring new ideas and everything to the fold. So hopefully some new ones will be popping up soon.
Catherine Bogart, you sufficiently teased me. I am ready to see what's next. I want to know, but thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to just to clarify that 5-minute show. Is that just in arena, or is that going to be streaming?
Just in arena. So
Ooh,
it's
I
more of
love
an
that.
incentive to come early, make sure you're ready in your seats before game time. And it's just every year. And actually, our team president, Jake Reynolds, said this to me today in an interview we did at a food tasting event for our new hospitality partner of Prudential Center and the Devils. He said, every year we just try to elevate everything. And this is just one way we're elevating the in-game experience. And the game presentation team has always done such a great job. And now we want to bring a little bit more hockey knowledge and focus and all of that into your game experience. So we're going to have some really cool highlights packs and some great interviews and some guests from time to time, but it's going to be really awesome. And I cannot wait to see you all at the rink and all the fans. I just want to say thank you for the support. And to both of you also, you guys have been so supportive and so kind with your time. And I truly appreciate it. It's always an honor to be invited on this podcast. So I really do appreciate it.
Catherine, you're a gem. We appreciate you having you a part of the Devils family, and we're definitely going to have you on again soon. Thank you so much.
And we'll have dinner waiting for you at American Whiskey after post-game. Trust me,
Perfect.
You're always invited. Just let us know.
Thank you. I always get hungry at like 10 o'clock at night, so I'll just run over really quick.
Just run over. I got a seat for you. Frank the Tank, you're covered. Trust me. Yep.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Have a great night and enjoy the start of the season. We are gifted with a back-to-back 2 hockey games in the first 2 days of our Devils season. It really could not go better.
We love that. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks,
Thank
Catherine.
you.
That is Catherine Bogart of the New Jersey Devils. Little insight, little teases. It's going to be all Catherine all the time at the arena. I already know it.
I know. It's exciting. Yep. It's exciting. Yep. But we're already up against it. We got to I'm making you go old school. You're making a phone call, Sam. You got to go.
Oh, yeah.
You got to call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you good? You got the number?
I'm actually sorry. I always start talking about food on this podcast. I'm like, wow, American Whiskey tomorrow after the game. I'm gonna hit some of that pizza.
There you go. You gotta love the pizza. But go get Ben. We got to talk Utica.
Will do.
We got to talk Utica. The
Utica's
comments
calling.
are looking good.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Utica's calling. So hold on a sec.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. You got this. We got this. Yeah, I am excited. But I'm excited to, I'm going to go to more games this year. That's the plan. And that's part of the tease. Danielle with WFAN just announced an event. She's partnering with myself, Pucks and Pitchforks, the Let's Go Devils podcast. We're running an event on October 24th at Elementary. I think I'm saying that there. Elementary Brewery. October 24th, starting at 6:30 p.m. I'm running, she's hosting the event, but we're doing games. If you've been watching this podcast for a long time, not only are we going old school with the phone calls like we used to do, but we're going old school in 1024, and I'm bringing back the game shows. We did the games at the end of every podcast for the first couple of years, and realistically, we had too many guests. We just couldn't fit the games, but I'm bringing the games back for the live shows this year. Every time I do a live show, I'm going to bring games, multiple games, and we're going to play with the crowd. That's something that the fans have been coming to me and been asking me for years. How do I get on the games? I want to play the game shows. I'm going to bring the games to the fans this year. So every single time that I come to a pregame or a postgame with Sam, we're going to play a game with the crowd. And then during these live events, so this live event with Danielle, that we're doing on 1024, Danielle McCartan from WFAN, the weekend person, like one of the best. She's got a day job and she's spending her weekends talking New York sports, but big Devils fan. We're going to do this pregame show. It's a charity show. 1024. Sam, I'm promoting the show while you were gone. The 1024 show that we're doing at Elementary Brewing.
Why am I getting the memo right now?
Because we have so many plugs to do, Sam, that I had to get them in while we had like 15 plugs. I needed to get one in before the end of the show because it's going to take a half hour to get through all these plugs.
Okay.
But before you had Ben on. So, but introduce Ben and then we'll go.
Oh, okay. Yes. Our next guest, his name is Ben Birnell, good friend of the podcast from the Daily Sentinel Sports. You find him on Twitter at BB_UR Sentinel. Ben, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Hey, guys. How are you? Doing okay.
Oh.
Actually, hoping that maybe my Twins will somehow pull off a dramatic comeback. But anyway, it's nice to see my baseball team finally in the postseason for once. I just wish they would have a little bit more success. But thanks for making some space for me and looking forward to chatting some hockey.
Hey, maybe this interview is the turnaround you need. We're talking Devils and Comets, so there's a lot of excitement here. Maybe that excitement can go to your baseball team.
Well, maybe. I don't know. They're down to 2 outs, so I highly doubt it. They've kind of thrown it away in this series, in my opinion. But
that's upsetting to talk. But let's talk about an exciting team because you've been covering the Utica Comets for as long as I've been paying attention to the Utica Comets. You've been on this beat. You've been focusing about this hockey team, and you've seen two very different teams since the Devils have taken over. Right? You've seen the wagon, right? The team that just destroys the regular season. They were undefeated for an insane amount of games to start the season. I think it was 2 years ago. Everything came together. The coaching staff was the right coaching staff. Everybody was in the right place, and then completely fell on their face in the playoffs. And then last year, they actually win a playoff series. They sneak in the playoffs, win a series, show that they can do that. They go win a series when not expected to. They lost the second one, but they showed some moxie at the end there. They really worked their way in, right? So you've seen two different teams. What's your assessment about the team going to this season?
Yeah, I think with the AHL, there's always change. Every season seems a little bit different just because of, you've got free agency, guys leaving, guys finding different opportunities. You got guys that are maybe stepping up into roles with the NHL club. And, it's always different. And last year, I think, like you said, kind of two different teams, even last year, it was a really kind of a roller coaster for them, and they were inconsistent and, kind of just maybe squeaked into the playoffs a little bit. They were in a playoff spot, but, mathematically too, there was some they could still not get in, but, and then they get in and have a pretty good series against Laval. I mean, especially going into an arena that, maybe they're not necessarily used to playing in. I mean, that's a 10,000 seat arena. Not a lot of AHL teams have, arenas that size. And yeah, they play there during the season, but it's usually not that full, I would say. But, you get guys to step in and kind of pick up, what they can, and got through it. And then, Toronto and the Marlies, I mean, they get their help from, the Maple Leafs and everything. And they're always tough. It seems like, a couple of years ago, they were, out of the playoffs in the AHL. And that was something that I think a lot of people were surprised by. So I think anytime you get a tough Marlies team, you have to be on top of your game. And, they also got Eric Shalgren to come down and kind of knock out the Comets. So it's interesting to see him on the team this year as well. So always a different kind of year. And I think, the early part of it, you have to kind of figure out how to get these guys to kind of gel together. Yeah, they've been at camp, but, some of them come down at separate times. And, even last weekend, you look at the lineups, and it was, a handful of what I would call regulars that were in the lineup, and maybe more so in the second game, you'd think that, okay, it'd be closer to what your lineup would look like, but it was another opportunity for, guys that ended up going to the ECHL to kind of show what they can do, when they're called upon later, because, the AHL is, that's the other thing that you kind of have to watch out for is, the inevitable call-ups, and then you've got injuries, and, you got to navigate through those. And I think this year, there's 16 guys signed to AHL deals, and I think that helps provide some pretty good depth. When you think about it, and even you got the guys that are on NHL deals as well, that are jockeying for spots too. So it's it'll be interesting to see how these first few weeks play out. And I realize that's a long-winded answer, but so many different moving parts with like the AHL and kind of how this season starts, and it's a shorter preseason, so when especially this season, when you don't have a lot of the guys that are going to be in your roster, you look at it too, where Gambardella and Schmelzer got called up for that last Devils preseason game. Like, you would have expected them to play in at least one of the Comets preseason games, and then they end up not doing that. So very interesting kind of training camp and start to the year, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to touch on something you brought up, which is the goalies, right? And I'm gonna talk you up a little bit. So just give me a sec. But Ben was so first on the Nico Dawes injury that I think you're still the only, and I think you reported this 2.5 months ago, that Nico Dawes, got a procedure on his hip and is gonna miss time, like a significant amount of time, which kind of puts the goalie situation in a weird place, right? Tyler Brennan is a guy that I really want to see, but he's down in Adirondack. I'm assuming they want him to kind of get reps and get the starter thought process, against lesser competition. Well, Colgren and was it Poultier? Is the other guy, right?
Yeah, Isaac Poulter. Yeah.
Yeah, Poulter. So what's your assessment? What do you think the Devils are going to get out of the goaltending position? And tell me, do you see like an NHL guy here between Dawes, Brenner, or maybe, do you think Calgren could still take a backup job somewhere? Sam, am I going crazy, or is nobody talking? You want me to talk? Okay. All right. Yeah, I couldn't tell if I just lost audio or anything, but yeah. So Sam's going to work on getting Ben back on the line, so I apologize for that. But I'm very excited because Ben, I haven't seen anybody cover the Dawes thing, and that's huge. We forget that Nico Dawes was the guy 2 seasons ago, and I believe we got Ben back on the line. Ben, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. We apologize.
No worries.
This is what I think we're on. I think we're on dial-up. No, I'm just kidding. But so just tell me what your assessment of the goaltending is.
Yeah, it seems like it's an interesting situation, at least over the last 3 years. I mean, you go back to kind of losing Scott Wedgwood on waivers, and that kind of set like this whole kind of thing in motion, I feel like, because had he not been lost on waivers, like Akira Schmidt would have started the season in the ECHL. And, here you are now. He's taken advantage of the opportunities that he's gotten, and now he's the, kind of the 1B in New Jersey. So I think they're trying to get back to that kind of plan now, where they have a young guy try to get his feet wet in the ECHL and kind of go from there. It's I think it takes some time for goalies, especially, to kind of figure out the process and figure out how to get through it. And Thatcher Demko played in Utica for 2 years, and I think in that time had 1 NHL start. And I think that's kind of maybe the process that you kind of want to follow with a young goalie, and letting him just play out and get experience in the AHL before bringing him up. And I don't think that sending, a young guy like Tyler Brennan down to the ECHL is a bad thing. I mean, you let him get a bunch of starts, and, who knows what happens in the next couple of months, and, there's a call up or something and he's needed, and, you go from there, and, you see what happens. But, I think Eric Shalgren's a guy that's looking to kind of prove himself as well. I think he, just seeing the numbers and the way that people kind of had talked about him during his time in Toronto was that it was maybe a little bit up and down for him. So he very much seems like the guy in terms of being like the starter for Utica. Kevin Dineen has talked highly about him, and it seems like they're going to maybe give him most of the starts. I would obviously think that Isaac Poulter gets a look there too. It seems like they're pretty high on him, considering, he was one of the last official, kind of cuts from camp, even though he was on an AHL deal for this season. But, I'd even heard going back to the summer that he was a guy that was going to be in Utica. So it seems like that was kind of the plan all along, to have, at least Poulter in Utica, and then whoever, kind of the backup or the number 3 option in the organization was. So, I don't know what happens with Keith Kincaid. I don't know how that whole situation plays out, because he'll go to AHL Chicago, and I don't know how, the New Jersey Devils will decide, okay, this is the guy we're going to bring up. Maybe it's they flip a coin. I don't know. You always got a plan for, something to happen. And, I think Shalgren's had, some good games with the Marlies in the past, and I would imagine that the Comets hope that they can get a kind of consistent, effort out of him. And then, Isaac Poulter's a little bit more of he's got a small sample size because he played 13 games last year, and so while I think he held his own, in those games, I think he's got to continue to take another few steps there in order to be kind of like a AHL, backup, I guess. So, he's got competition, that's for sure. I mean, so, if you want to bring a guy like Tyler Brennan up, then you possibly have him and you swap him out. I don't know how that is all going to work. It's nice to have options instead of trying to figure out what's happening when something happens. You know what I mean? So at least now you've got 2 guys at the AHL level, and you've got 2 guys at the ECHL level, and you've got another guy too in Keith Kincaid that they could use as an option. So like I said, good to have options.
Yeah. Listen, in dating and in hockey, it's good to have options. That's what they always say, right? I do want to talk about the options that are on defense, right? It's going to look a lot different, right? Riley Walsh was traded for Shane Bowers, so Riley Walsh is in Boston, and there's a lot of changes on the back end, but it seems like Simon Nemeth was sent down to Utica after a decent preseason. Right? I don't know how much you've been paying attention to the preseason specifically, but Nemeth has been decent, right? He's really good at power play, decent at penalty kill, could use some work. 5v5 in his own zone. So what do you think is going to do for his development to go into the season this year as like the top guy, like the number 1? There's no Walsh there. Like, he's the top guy on the right side. How is that going to help his development?
Yeah, I think he's going to get big minutes, and I think he's going to probably play in some, some of those bigger situations. They'll give him, power play time. With Walsh gone, now they're looking for someone to maybe quarterback that on power play 1, and I got to think that's Nemeth's job, and they'll give him some PK time as well. I know he got that a little bit last year, but I also think they were trying to kind of like maybe not necessarily ease him into it, but try to sparse it out a little bit, because he had played so much hockey. I mean, he was playing it, had played at the Worlds and, all that stuff. So, I would think that he's a key guy there, for the Comets. I don't know how long he stays up. I remember thinking last year, okay, this is a kid that's not going to stay here very long, and maybe by December he's gone. Well, I'm wondering that now, like, if you've got maybe Luke Hughes, who maybe needs a little bit more time, and they think that they could swap them out. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying anything is possible, and I feel like maybe that's something that they make the decision with. I mean, maybe they learned a little bit from last year with Alex Holtz, and maybe not waiting as long to maybe make a decision. So, I think Shimon's going to be a guy that plays a lot. And I think the offensive side of his game was never maybe the biggest issue. I think, he was fine defensively. I think there were times that he put himself in some situations where he might not have wanted to make that same play again. But I mean, he's also 19 years old, and I mean, he's a smart player. I mean, how many can you say about that? With a 19-year-old kid that's coming over from, a different country for the first time, and turning in a pretty solid, rookie season and kind of figuring it out. So, I don't think it's very long until they give him an opportunity and see what they have, and maybe he gets a few games and then he comes back. It's tough to say. We'll see how it all plays out, and it, continue to make steps. It seems like he, at least enjoys playing for Kevin Dineen and the coaching staff down here. So.
Yeah, you love that. Another guy who's shown much love to Utica is Graham Clark. Clark, he's always a guy I've always loved. Like, I really liked him when they picked him in the third round. Watched him at the Ottawa 67s. He had that pretty terrible, I think it was a shoulder injury that kind of took one of his seasons away. But he was always a guy that could score at will if he could stay healthy. Stayed healthy last year, looked incredible. But comes into the preseason this year with a little bit of expectations. Like, he was really fighting Holtz for that, third line right wing spot, and lost precipitously. So now with Clark having that preseason under his belt, kind of moving on and can focus on being the top guy in Utica as far as the scorer goes, were you surprised about what he did in the preseason? Just kind of didn't have it, just went rough, and kind of what do you expect for him to do as an encore to what he did last season?
So I don't know that I was necessarily surprised with the preseason, I guess, because he was part of that prospects challenge roster. And my first thought was, well, this is a guy that's been in the AHL now for, you go back to the shortened COVID season. Okay, that's, 20 or some games, but he's played back-to-back 60 game seasons.
Yeah,
I don't really think that's necessarily a tournament that you would have a guy that has that many games, I guess, in that tournament. And then it was you saw that they gave Luke Hughes off from that tournament to say to focus on main camp. Well, and then my thought was, well, why wouldn't you let Graham Clark do that? So I guess, I'm not really sure how that, all factors into where they saw him even before training camp opened. But, I think he can continue to work on his game and improve, all aspects. So when he does go up, he can be counted on. Maybe it's going to be a different role too. I mean, he's going to play probably, top 6 minutes here, but then he's going to have to go up and probably play, third or fourth line roles. So it's going to be a different kind of, thing that he's got to do when he goes up. But I think he would probably like to have a little bit of a faster start compared to last year. I know that was something he said, last year was a little bit slower of a start and then kind of caught fire there, started to get going around Christmas and even maybe a little bit before that and kind of rolled through that too. So, I would think that if you can get another kind of similar season, at least where he picks up off from last season, that's only going to be beneficial for him. he's got a lethal shot. Like, I watched him after he came down, and I mean, he was working on one-timers from the circles with one of the assistant coaches, and he was one of the first days that he was back here. He was one of the last guys on the ice. So, I mean, the one thing that I remember them saying last year was that he's one of the hardest working guys on the team. And, that's great to hear, especially when you've got a guy that's looking to get, his first NHL game. So, I think he's got to just continue to get better and work on, the defensive part of his game, like a lot of players do. And I think he'll get there.
So, before I let you go, I really appreciate you kind of give us some insight about what Utica is going to look like this year and, why we should pay attention and some of those big stars. But I want you to tell me about Utica, the city, and Utica, the presentation, the game atmosphere. I want you to sell me on Utica because me and Sam have been wanting to get out to Utica. Obviously, the pandemic kind of threw some things off, but we've been talking about going to Utica for years. And I think this is the year. I think this is the year we're going to come. I want to bring fans with us. Sell me on Utica of why we should come out there, why we should enjoy the city, why should you enjoy a game in Utica, catch a Comets game.
Yeah, I think they've put a lot of work into the building over the last few years. It looks like a completely different building than, say, 10 years ago when the AHL returned, just on the outside alone. But then the inside, you've got suites and everything. And it's just it's a cool looking building because you don't see a lot of arenas like the Odd anymore. And now they also have another building next door called they call it the Nexus Center. It's got 3 sheets of ice that can be covered with turf too, and you can play indoor soccer and such. And you've got other events that go on there, and they're bringing the Women's World Championships to Utica in April.
Ooh,
so basically to play both venues because they're connected and everything. And it's just great to see how things have grown just even in that small kind of area of downtown Utica. But I've lived in Utica now for more than a decade. I've even lost count. And it's grown and it's changing, and they're trying to improve it. The big thing that Utica is really known for is its food, and there's so many different options and so many different things that you can eat. But even some of those are on display at the game too. But the game atmosphere, I feel like it's almost kind of like a concert in a way, in terms of all the music and the lights, and everyone gets their own kind of introduction if they're in the starting lineup. And it feels like a pro game. It's not something that you wouldn't get, I guess, at maybe some other places. It's nice to see that when these guys do get announced, that the fans are rooting for them and are happy that they're here. So and Utica loves the hockey. The people here know when to cheer. I mean, if you've got a good penalty kill, they're going to let you know it. And that's probably one of the loudest, instances I remember covering the Comets. Even a few years ago in the playoffs, there was a solid penalty kill. I want to say it might even been against Albany. I could be mistaken when the teams were, still there. But they had a pretty good kill at a key moment, and it was, I felt like the roof could have come off the building. So it's not like you're getting people that are sitting on their hands. They're getting going, and you've got a couple of groups around in the building too that like to start their own cheers and get loud. And so I think it's a great atmosphere, and I think it's a great place to watch a game. I haven't watched one from a kind of fan perspective in a few years, probably maybe since even the first season, since I wasn't covering the team at that time. So and if you're a baseball fan, Cooperstown's only an hour from Utica as well. So the Baseball Hall of Fame is right there. It's just I think it's a cool area to kind of get to know, and they just happen to have a hockey team as well that people really enjoy getting to see, and I think the team is the front office kind of people that put the behind the scenes stuff together do a pretty good job, selling things for the game and making it seem like a pretty cool atmosphere.
Ben, before I let you go, I got to give you a second to just promote. What are you doing with the Daily Sentinel? Do you have any cool articles coming out? Why should people be subscribed to your writings?
Yeah, we'll have a season preview out tomorrow, just ahead of the season with them opening on Friday. We try to get down there and cover them the best we can with different stories on different players and try to give you something that maybe you wouldn't get anywhere else. So trying to cover the team as best we can and give insight to people about the guys on the ice and maybe get to know them and kind of what makes them tick and obviously the on ice part of it too, but just trying to keep people informed about I would say arguably the most popular thing in the area.
Yeah, Graham Clark, Shimon Emetz, Eric Shalgren, Chase Stillman. There's some important players that are going to go through. You got Nico Dawes, who I still think is the guy. I still think he's going to end up being the guy if he could come out of this hip injury. There are future Devils on this team. Ben's going to have the insight to him before everybody else. So make sure you cover it. You're checking out his coverage for the Daily Sentinel. Ben Birnell, I really appreciate you having you on. We're going to have you on again soon. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. That is Ben Birnell of the Daily Sentinel.
We went to overtime, Sam.
Oh, we definitely did.
It's my fault. That's my fault.
No, it's not your fault. But, hey.
But I mean, honestly, how good of a podcast was that?
It was excellent. You did a great job. All I did was just produce.
Listen, keeping me online in the South Jersey bunker is work. It is not easy.
It actually is work. It actually is
our
work.
NBC overlords are not giving me the best connection. So, it is what it is. But we kept on. I never dropped, and that's huge.
All right, don't jinx it right now. Let's get the plugs out of the way.
All right, let's get the plugs. All right, so I already talked about October 24th. Me and Dale McCartan and Sam's going to be there. I'm going to have some guests from Pitchforks. We're going to have some other guests. I think the owner of Elementary is going to do some shows, game shows, trivia, the whole nine. Come out to Elementary. We'll keep plugging this. We'll have to talk about that later. pucksandpitchforks.com. Right now I have 5 players are going to win awards, 5 players playing for contracts, and then tomorrow it's the massive season preview. The season preview is coming out tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. It's going to have both predictions. It's going to have players you want to watch. It's going to have where do you think the Devils are going to finish in the season? Are they going to beat the Rangers? A lot of people have them not beating the Rangers, but the Devils are going to beat the Rangers. Let's be serious. That's coming out on Pucks and Pitchforks tomorrow. Just keep go to pucksandpitchforks.com. We're going to have so many articles. It's going to be off the chain. I'm also, Sam, I got a fan-sided quarterback ranking coming out. So that's going to be coming out either tomorrow or Friday. Probably tomorrow.
Wow. All right. I got to start plugging. I have to start plugging. And then I'm seeing something strange on my camera feed here. But let me start plugging, if you don't mind. Tomorrow, American Whiskey, Game Day Live, and Devils After Dark. We're going to be out on the big stage tomorrow. Who's going to be on? I've got a couple guests lined up right now. Can't tell you yet for me to know and for you to find out. Come to American Whiskey. Also, there's been a lot of questions about the Ann Crew Brew. It won't be ready for opening night, unfortunately, but there has been a taste test, and it's got overwhelmingly approved by the people that tasted it. So I'm just going to go by that.
What the hell? Where am I for this?
Oh, I'm not even part of
Sam.
it. It's part of the brewery. And also, if you don't know where American Whiskey is, it's 51 Edison Place. Let's go to a live look-in right now. This is right now. American Whiskey
It's right across the Devil's Den. Like,
yeah.
you don't know where American Whiskey is. It's the main entrance. Just turn around. You're at American Whiskey. Come on,
I can move the camera around a little bit. You know, that's where we'll be tomorrow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did they get some new neons?
Yeah.
What's all special up in there?
Yeah. And also, a lot of, I'm going to do some pop-up podcasts tomorrow. I'll tell you my outrageous predictions. Not going to tell you now. May shock some. I don't know. That's what I do. Just like that Lindy Ruff article back in 2022.
Mm-hmm. You're looking pretty good. I will say, I am, and that's the one thing I forgot. My bold predictions are going to be a little late. They're going to come out on Friday. But I will have a bold predictions article as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Sorry, I saw, when I was looking at that live camera feed, I saw a car go the other way and go up on the side. I'm like, what the heck is that? That's a one-way street.
Not our problem.
Yeah, not our problem. Not our problem, but this is what happens when you do things live, and I'm seeing some other crazy stuff. So I'll see you there tomorrow and Friday, and that's it. So I'm going to hit the music right now, but you can find all of our podcasts all over the place on YouTube, at Let's Go Devils, Facebook, at Let's Go Devils Podcast, and on Twitter, X, at Let's Go Devils Pod. And also subscribe to our podcast pages, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music Prime, all that good stuff. Spotify, iHeart app. All righty, Nick. We're out of here. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com.
We got hockey tomorrow.
Yep. Thank you to
Let's
Bill
go.
Spaulding, Catherine Bogart, Dan Rice, Alex Chauvancy, and Ben Birnell. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Till next time, let's go Devils.